I'll talk to you later.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
Good morning and welcome to the Sunday Morning Sports Show. I am B. Brian Strilla, and I have with me my esteemed panel, James J.T. Train Martin, Jack Hirsch, and Keith Hingle. How you fellas doing this morning?
Excellent. How are you?
Awesome. Hey, it's hot here. Well, we're in a mini heat depression now. It's like supposed to be 97 degrees today. It was 96 yesterday. It's going to be 98 tomorrow. So we're just
we're going to get home. We're going to get home to that same thing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 100 degrees.
Yeah, it's lovely, especially here when it's all humid. But anyway, let's get right into tonight's Game 7, NBA championship between Oklahoma and Indiana. Now, how do you guys like the series so far? I know James does. We ain't gonna say nothing about this, JT.
Well, I for myself, I can say that I had mentioned if the Pacers would win, it would be in 7 games, and every time everybody's counted them out. They bounced back with a big victory. They got to show they could win in Oklahoma City, which they won the first game, right? Is that me? Oh God, I got something playing somewhere. Can you guys hear that? Or can you hear that or no?
Just a little bit, yeah.
Well,
wait.
Got to give James credit. He did
It's on my
say
phone.
it was going to be a 7-game series right off the bat. He didn't attach asterisks to it the way you're doing, Keith, and the way Mac always did it. You know, Mac would wait until one team was up 3 games to 2 in the series. Then if they won it, he'd say, yeah, just as I predicted. You got to say it in the beginning.
That's a Mike Francesa thing. That's a Mike Francesa thing. Now, I did say, and this was dead, I said Oklahoma City in 5. So that was my first prediction. I said if the Pacers would win, it would be in 7. But you got to hedge a little. You don't make it to get this old without hedging your bets.
Especially if you don't have a team in the, team of your liking in there. I mean,
right.
Indiana and Oklahoma City are not bad teams. I'm just saying it's not the Pistons, so I wouldn't make any outrageous comments about it.
Right. But we talked about before the show, I'm rooting for the Pacers because every win they have now, and if they win it all, it makes the Knicks look sillier for firing Thibodeau in my mind. And, that's another whole conversation. But let's go Pacers, one more game.
So we got Keith's pool. James, who do you got going into this game?
I got to stick with my pick. I got OKC winning in 7, but as Jack alluded to yesterday on our show, I wouldn't be surprised if Indiana wins this game because they've been playing great ball since the second half of the season, and they proved it by having a 44 and I believe in 12 record, the second best in the NBA. So I'm not surprised. That's why I thought they would go 7 games because you see it in the second half of the season. You also saw it in the playoffs. They knocked out some really good teams. Mind you, there were some issues with some of the teams, but it's basketball. Everybody's got something going on. So they're a legit team. They proved it. And I'm not mad at them if they lose tonight. But I'm not mad as well if they win. And I wouldn't be surprised. But I do have OKC. I got to stick with my pick. I pick OKC in 7.
Pacers playing with house money, right? So they get the.
Well, not really. I don't look at that. They're not playing with house money. This is vital that the Pacers win tonight's game. I mean, I think it's a little more important, not as for a particular player. We discussed that yesterday. I think the SGA legacy-wise, it's the more important than any other player. But as a team, I think it's a little more important for the Pacers to win, because when this game is over, going forward, OKC is going to be favored to come out of the West next year, win or lose today. They're going to be favored. Indiana's thrown back into the pot with Cleveland, Boston, and the Knicks. They're not going to be favored over any of those teams. Maybe the Pacers could be back next year. I'm not saying they can't, but certainly the preseason favorites are going to be the Cavaliers and the Celtics. And the Knicks and the Pacers are going to be comparatively even. And that's not to even mention a team like the Orlando Magic that made a big trade. And they're going to be in the mix as well.
Well, but that's why they're playing with house money, because they were predicted to no better than that this year.
No, but it's not house money. If they win tonight, Keith, the Indiana Pacers are NBA champions. Even if they don't make the playoffs the next few years, it's incredible. They've delivered.
Oh, without a doubt.
If they don't do it tonight, chances are they might not do it the next 20 years. You especially should know that as a Yankee fan. You gotta grab a title when you
know that as a Knicks fan. What are you talking about, Yankees?
Fan. Right, okay.
That's 60 years almost.
Wow. So let me ask a question too. And I'm going to go switch it both ways. If Indiana wins this game, and Jack alluded to the fact that OKC will be a favorite next year. Question 1A and 1B. OKC, will they go get somebody else because they think they need to be put over the top, or do you think they stay the same as a team? Same thing for Indiana. Even if they win, say they win, do they add anybody or delete anybody by attrition, or is it just we're going to have the same two teams next year in the NBA as far as players are concerned?
That's interesting. I mean, Indiana, if they win, I mean, with salary caps and everything else, I don't know what their salary cap situation is and the salaries per se. I wouldn't think they'd make wholesale changes, and I certainly don't think Oklahoma City is going to make wholesale changes if they lose tonight. They could make a tweak here and there, but I think they've got their team where they want them, and they have progressed, like we talked about before. You have to get that experience of winning in the playoffs, and they've done that. They've reached the precipice of a championship, and there's no reason to blow it up, that's for sure. And I think you'd see minimal change on Oklahoma City. Better chance on Indiana, one way or the other, I think, than OKC.
I'm predicting this offseason in the NBA, there's going to be one major trade. I don't know who's going to make it. I don't know if it's going to be for Giannis or not. But all these teams can do, like the Pacers and OKC, just tweak their teams slightly for next year. I mean, see who's available off the bench, trade a bench player for a bench player and hope it works out a little more. Then there's the X factor move. There could be a player like a Zion Williamson who a team might be willing to take a chance on and make a deal. But what can they really do? I mean, that's the thing about it. You draft well, but for OKC, they're young. They have their core: SGA, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren. These guys are what, in their mid-20s? I mean, they're going to be there for a while.
And Williams has stepped up his game huge here, I think, in these finals, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I got to agree with Jack on this one. There's not much you can really do, but one caveat for these teams is that they drafted well and they traded or acquired free agents well. Neither both SGA and Halliburton came from the same team. Excuse me, that's not true. It's not. Was it Halliburton? And no, I'm trying to think. They came from Sacramento. Who came from Sacramento?
Toronto.
SGA came from Sacramento along with Fox, and did Halliburton too? I think so. I think all three of those players.
I think he was in Sacramento, yes.
Yes, I think all three of those players were there. And so, which is crazy to even think about. But they're in small market teams. I don't know if they can attract some superstar or just a base level star to come and play, but do they need them? I think maybe Indiana might be a team that probably could use one. Because they, again, like what Jack said, next year they're not going to be favored because they got to match up against some of these other great teams that are going to come back, bounce back: Boston, New York, and Cleveland. So maybe they could use one more player. But OKC, I just don't see. I can see them being the favorites again, just as they are. And they have a young team. I don't know if we're money-wise or contracts was coming up soon, but I'm pretty sure, obviously that has to happen at some point for everybody.
Right.
But we'll see.
So way too early predictions. Who you believe could be in the championship next year?
Oh boy, Knicks. Well, Jack's right that win or lose tonight, OKC goes in probably as a prohibitive favorite to take it all. Pacers will be in play depending on what they do, but as Jack said, they won't be favored. The Celtics, I think it looks like they're going to keep most of this together. It looks like, which I'm a little surprised at. I think the Celtics will be the favorite in the East myself.
If it was the Tatum injury, take that into consideration.
That's true.
If Tatum was healthy, yeah, they'd be the favorite. I think marginally the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be favored going into the season. But like I said, they're number teams. I mean, even in the West, a team like the Houston Rockets might be ready to take the next step, and they were good last year. In the old standbys, Golden State and the Lakers, are they a little long in the tooth? Can they make one more run? You can't completely discount them. The Timberwolves, I mean, it's the same thing every year. They take a little bit of a run at the finals. They come close to getting to the finals. And they haven't gotten over the top. Well, what's going to make them better next year? The team that might surprise us next year, believe it or not, would be the Dallas Mavericks. Because if Cooper Flag turns out to be a star, and Kyrie's going to come back from the injury at some point, and if Anthony Davis stays healthy, and they've got a good bench, good big men on that team, I mean, that might be the team that could win it next year. Can you imagine if the Mavericks win the NBA title next year, and Anthony Davis is healthy, and he would be a big part of it? What would the fans in Dallas be saying about the Luka deal?
That's a huge if, by the way. Anthony Davis.
And a lot of big ifs. There's a lot of big ifs.
Always ifs. What team doesn't have ifs in reality? Except maybe.
Yes, I agree. But those are some major ifs. Because, I mean, each name you mentioned are star power potential players, and you need them. And all fell. I mean, except the kid, not having been drafted yet. But we have to see it's yet to be determined what he's going to be like in the pros. But the other two, the aforementioned Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis, and long in the tooth and injury prone. So,
yikes. They might have a new head coach, Gene. They might have a new head coach still. That's not decided yet. He wants an extension. He can force his way out of there. You can make it very difficult for the team to keep him.
All the teams that I hear on here, I didn't hear one person say Detroit Pistons. Right. Nobody said the Pistons.
Pistons are getting better. They're not. Let's be honest about it. They're not. They're a bit of a long shot to win the NBA title next year. It came together for the Pistons this year. How much better can the Pistons be next year than they were this year? I mean, it seemed like they played about as well as they could have. And with a little luck, they would have beaten the Knicks in the series.
And what about Orlando, the Magic?
Orlando. Them too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. This is what I think is going to dominate the offseason in the NBA is the situation with Giannis. It's going to have to get resolved quickly, number one. He's going to stay with the Bucks. If he's not going to stay with the Bucks, I think the Bucks are going to handle it. Obviously, they were much different than what Dallas did with Luka. They're going to put him out there for auction for the highest bidder. But is Giannis going to limit the place he wants to go to? But let's be honest about it. The weaker teams don't have that much to give as is, because that's why they're not good teams to begin with.
Everything changed with Milwaukee when they let Drew Holiday go, and Middleton just fell from the earth.
Yep.
It just really changed. Those are the core three there that were great for that championship run. And if they could have kept that together or got somebody replaced for Middleton, because Damian Lillard is definitely clearly not the answer there, especially defensively. And unfortunately, he torn an Achilles, ruptured Achilles. Yeah, so that's going to be tough coming back from.
They won a championship. Also, teams like Milwaukee, you're right, James, and the Philadelphia 76ers, they were perennial contenders. This year is going to be the first season in a long time that neither of them are going to be expected, to take a serious run towards the NBA Finals. I mean, when you think of it, they're just maybe borderline playoff teams.
Milwaukee's a great example how fast things can change too, because that championship season, they had the perfect situation, right? Their big three and a bunch of guys who knew the roles. Even within the big three, they all knew their roles. And they had Portis, and they had a bunch of guys that came off the bench that just knew what their job was, and they weren't trying to do more than that. And they had a perfect storm there, but that's how quickly it can fall apart, because games fall off the table, as James said about Middleton, and guys get traded because of contracts or whatever, and other guys want to do more than their role, and things change a lot.
Well, one of the big things during the offseason is the big Kevin Durant talk. Does he stay, or what team does he go to?
I don't think he's going to stay. I think he's made it clear he wants out of there, and I don't think the organization wants him to stay either. It's a matter whether they can get how much they can get for him. He's made his choice is pretty clear. I think it'd be interesting if he went to San Antonio, quite frankly, and played with the young buck there, and a new coaching situation in San Antonio. They'd be an interesting team, I think, if Durant went there. They still need more, obviously, but they'd be interesting. There was a lot of talk about the Knicks right after the season. He was never going to come to the Knicks. They weren't going to be serious.
You don't know. You don't know yet. But Giannis is going to get. You're going to have any team's going to have to give up a lot more to get Giannis than they will Durant.
100%.
Stage with Durant, I don't think Phoenix can get a haul in return. I really don't. Maybe two number ones and a pick, maybe.
What? What's the contract they're taking? It's $50 million. I'm not even sure what it is.
I just
Crazy.
don't think Durant has that tremendous value, anymore.
He would be a great guy. I think we talked about this a week or so ago. If he was willing to go to a championship contender and, again, play a role, maybe even be a sixth man where you come in and just shoot the ball, because he can still play offense. And he's a very good offensive player. Just defense is not a good situation for him. But I don't know that he's willing to. His ego is going to let him do something like that. He still thinks at 35 he can be the man, right?
That's what.
At this juncture of his career, he's a hired gun. He really just needs to be like you just said, maybe somebody potentially coming off as a sixth man off the bench, and he would annihilate their second teams on other teams, because he's an elite shooter. That wingspan, no one can stop it. I mean, that 3-pointer or whatever he does, man, he's just unreal when he shoots the ball. But he's longer than two.
Well, why do these guys have to think about going somewhere only where they can win an NBA championship? That's nice that they're thinking that way, that it's more than a paycheck to them. But wouldn't it be a good fit if Durant hypothetically came back to the Nets, mentored the young players? They're not going to win any title. He'd be popular with the fan base, and he would enjoy himself playing the games in a nice atmosphere. I mean, what is wrong with that?
I knew there was an agenda to Jack wearing that shirt today. That was fun.
Yes, exactly. That's why I said that. Yes, exactly.
Good call.
Going back to the Brooklyn Nets. Oh,
he wants him back.
So switching over a little bit over to baseball. LSU's Cade Anderson throws a complete game shutout against the Coastal Carolina. If I get killed for saying this, is a Chancelleers.
That's good.
Chancelleers. Okay. And pitched a 3-hit, 10 strikeout gem in a 1-0 victory. The Chancelleers lost for the first time in 27 games and must win today to force a third game.
What the Chancellors have done has been nearly like impossible to win 26 games in a row in today's college.
What I was reading up briefly upon that, because I just noticed this LSU College World Series thing. How do you feel about it, James? That's your team, LSU.
They win. They win. 2 and 3 years, man. World Series. I'm ready for it. Let's knock it out. Knock it out the park. I think they're gonna do it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they may have to. They might force a game 3 though, because like you said, 26 games, man. To lose one, I don't know if they're gonna lose two in a row. And then the score was 1-0. So it's not like they just blew them out of the water. So
right, yeah.
the guy had to play a perfect game to beat them. So the Chancellors may win it the next game, and then they may force a third. But I like LSU's chances.
This is really fun too, because you're watching a team try to win their first championship, and a team, I think 8th, if I'm not mistaken. LSU's going for
LSU, LSU's baseball powerhouse, yeah.
Yeah,
lately.
And the Chancellor, I think it'll go a third game. What I really like coming out of this game is watching a coach let a pitcher go 130 pitches and not be afraid that, oh my God, his arm might fall off tomorrow. Let's stop. I mean, I could parallel this with something in major leagues, but I won't hijack this conversation.
We'll be going there next.
It's to me, this is a fun series because of the dynamics of the whole thing. And this kid yesterday pitched one of the best games. I think it's only the second. It's like the second 1-0 complete game shutout since they've gone to this format 23 years ago. So it's, again, you're seeing some great baseball, college baseball, guys. You're not watching it. There's some good baseball.
Good morning, Linda.
Hey, good morning, Linda.
Hello, Linda.
No, Keith, you made me think of something just now with college baseball coaches as opposed to the major leagues. I mean, once a player gets to the minors, he's within an organization, they watch his pitch count. They want to protect him. But in college, especially if you know a player's coming out, are the managers willing to go the full route, not worry about his pitch count, not worry about his arm, just milk him out as long as he's effective?
I got a comment there, but I won't go there until Bistrella wants to. I got a rebuttal for that.
I don't know. I'm asking.
Well, I mean, you can go into it, Keith, because we're fading this into the major league. So
good.
Go for it.
So to that specific comment, they want to protect pitchers. I go on this rant every 2 weeks during Major League Baseball season. Pitchers are dropping right and left, doing what you're doing now. They got Tommy John surgery. They got shoulder surgery. They got this. They got that. Because you don't let them throw. You don't let them strengthen their arms. You put them on strict pitch counts, and then you say, go out there and throw as hard as you can for as long as you can. And we don't teach them how to pitch, and we don't teach them how to pitch deep into games and pitch out of trouble. And yesterday's game with the Yankees is a perfect example. I understand, but given today's climate, Boone's protecting his pitcher. Clark Schmidt said, my manager's protecting me. I don't know that he's not going out there in the 8th inning and putting him out in 8 pitches, right? Put him back out there in the 8th inning. If he gets in trouble, then get him out of the game. It's the way we play the game today is ridiculous. Nolan Ryan, again, 50 years ago, pitched against Louis Tiant, and they threw like a combined 380 pitches in a 13-inning game. We'll never see stuff like that again. It's ruining the game. You take a chance at one more comment. You take a chance at history away from this kid that he may never get a chance at again. And I don't like it at all.
It wasn't a chance at history. It wasn't pitching a perfect game. If he was pitching a perfect game, maybe I understand that.
Only 13 no-hitters in Yankee history. 13.
Clark Schmidt had already thrown a career-high amount of pitches, a career high, and he had 2 long innings to go. If it was only 1 inning, okay.
You don't know how long those innings would be.
2 innings to go. And remember what happened with Johan Santana, the only no-hitter in Met history. Terry Collins, the manager, kept wanting to take him out, but he wouldn't do it because the Mets never had a no-hitter in history. He left him in, and Collins said that he was wincing on every pitch, and Santana was never quite the same again. With that said, I agree with you, Keith, more so than not. Allow these guys to pitch more. I agree with you completely, but cases are individual. And yesterday with Clark Schmidt, he threw a career high at the amount of pitches, and you got to think of the big picture to stretch him out a couple of more innings.
At this point, but you're right about all that. With Santana, you're right about Clark and his career high. He shouldn't be at this point of his career, and it's 103 pitches is a high in his highest pitch count. It's indicative of the way we play the game today, and we're going to miss out on a lot of things that my generation, your generation, Jack, got to see, because they're not going to happen. You're not going to see no-hitters. You're not going to see guys win 300 games or come close to it. You're not going to see guys strike out 300 guys. You're not going to see any of that anymore. And I think it makes the game worse. I just do.
A team no-hitter is going to start becoming popular. We look at individual no-hitters. Are we going to start judging it more on what the team did?
I'm not.
Records for team no-hitters?
I'm not. I'm telling those kids to get off my lawn. They want to get recognized. Go get up.
Get off my lawn. So, boiling over from Thursday's Padres-Dodgers game, Robert Suarez and Padres skipper and Dodgers skipper both missed were suspended a game on Friday, which they already served, obviously. Do you think this is bringing something back to baseball with this grime that's going on, these hates that these teams have for each other?
Yes. I mean, rivalries are good in sports, right? Yankees-Red Sox, a great example. It's not anywhere near the anger towards each other. They fraternize during the games and after the games. And Dodgers and Giants were the big rivalry back in the day, not the Padres. It's interesting that there's hate between the Padres and Dodgers, but I think it's good for sports when you have that type of vitriol towards your opponent. There's not enough of it today. In all the sports, they seem to fraternize. Again, you're going to see fights, but go back and watch the Red Sox and Yankees fight in the 70s, and then watch a fight, even the fight the other night. It's not even in comparison to watching Nettles rip Bill Lee's shoulder apart with a body slam.
No, we do have quite a few. We do have quite a few more series between these two to go.
You'll see.
So I'm sure we'll see some bench clearing incidents
Yankees
coming up.
Yankees and Rays have had a few of those dust ups in the last few years, but
jersey swaps is the death of sports.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point.
You know what gets me too is that one pitch intentionally hits a batter. So when the pitcher on the batter's team that got hit retaliates and hits the batter, when the other team gets up, that team gets offended. What are they getting offended about? What did they expect? It was their pitcher who drilled another batter who started the whole thing. The commissioner can easily stop all this. Just suspend the guy for 20 games or whatever. You hit a batter, okay? You're out. It's that simple. And it would put a flat out stop to it.
You're talking about a retaliatory pitch, right?
No, in the first place, hitting someone, you can tell whether it's intentional or not. Some pitches are inside and they barely hit a batter, and you think maybe he could have gotten out of the way of it. Okay, I can let that go. But, sometimes it's obvious. Look what happened. Fernando Tatis and Ohtani both got flunked twice in the latest series of the Padres and Dodgers. It wasn't an accident, all four times total that they got hit. And something's got to be done about it. And it's a shame. The Dodgers have a pitcher making his major league debut, and he has to feel an obligation to hit Tatis with a pitch. He has to show his teammates, he has their back. Guy's making his major league debut.
Jack, I'm very surprised
about the pitchers who are drilling batters. At least they're not throwing at their head. I mean, they're like hitting him in a part of the body where they're trying not to hurt, like injure him. They're trying to, make him feel it, punish him, not injure him.
Yeah, I don't want to throw at guys' heads. That's not cool, right? I'm not cool with that. But hitting guys is part of the game, has been part of the game for 140 years. Gibson and Drysdale would have pitched about 10 games a year with your idea of suspending them every time they hit somebody. And I think guys, and part of the problem comes in the fact that guys don't expect to get pitched inside and maybe get thrown at. That's part of the problem. You're getting offended. You should expect me getting hit retaliatory. And I mean, like warnings.
It's an accident. What happens if the batter does this?
Guy should know.
The bat just go out of his hand and go sailing towards the mound. The bat.
It's happened.
Okay, let him do it one time. The bat goes flying at the time.
That's different. That's not the same thing.
Drill guys if they know they could have a flying bat coming at them a moment later.
No, well, fine. Let them do that, I guess. I don't know, but I don't want to take the hitting the batter out of pitching inside. You're going to take pitching out. You're pitching inside totally out of the game if you start suspending guys for hitting somebody even accidentally.
Well, no. But if the pitcher admits he deliberately hit a batter, then they're going to suspend him. If he doesn't admit it, nothing happens. I love the announcer. The Yankees had a pitcher, Paul Quantrill, who drilled a batter. I think it was against the Royals years ago. And they asked him after the game, did you deliberately throw at the batter to hit him? He said, no, the ball accidentally slipped out of my hand. That's the way it accidentally slipped out of the way of the other pitcher's hand.
Well, CC Sabathia, and I got to run, but CC Sabathia a couple of years ago gave up $500,000. The Yankees ended up paying him. He probably knew they would, but he gave up a bonus, but because an innings pitch bonus, because he nailed a Rays guy in retaliation before he hit his innings. And that's the way the game ought to be played. Protect your players. That's the way the game ought to be played.
No.
I'm surprised, Jack, at you.
Are you really?
Nah, I guess not.
Sabathia, wait, CC Sabathia, I got to throw him, kudos, whatever. I always like to remind people when he was a free agent, towards the end of the season, he pitched on short rest when he was on the Milwaukee Brewers because they won a race to get to the playoffs, and he wanted to help his team. And he didn't listen to his agent or other people who said, you're going to be a free agent. Don't pitch on short rest. Don't put yourself at risk for the new contract. He said, the heck with the new contract. I got to help my team.
That's what I see. Player. All right, guys, got to run.
All right, thanks for being on, Keith. You too, sir.
You too.
So, also in college rules, I was watching Rays Tigers game last night, and college rules, they can challenge or they can replay if a batter can get out of they can challenge if a batter can get out of the box in time to get hit by a pitch. Something that we don't want to really have to be implemented into the major leagues because it's hard to get out of, it's hard to stand in there at a breaking ball. You want to stand in there because a breaking ball comes at you and then goes away. You don't want to, you don't want to get out of the box early because you think you're going to get hit, because you think you're going to get, some kind of a penalty for it. Do you guys think that's something that's going to be implemented into the major leagues, or?
I understand what you're saying, but that's like any other rule, whether you should be first base or not. I'm talking about deliberately throwing at a batter, and it's not the easiest thing to do because once in a while batters do accidentally get hit, but it's the type of pitch you throw. I remember the late great Tom Seaver. The umpire was going to eject him once for hitting a batter, and he said, I threw a slider. That wasn't a fastball. It was a slider tailed in. And then the umpire said, you're right. He thought it over. But sometimes it's obvious. Pedro Martinez, he was known for hitting batters. He once threw behind a Yankee batter, Kareem Garcia's head, which is very dangerous. When you throw behind the head, because instinctively, batters back up. When they think the ball's coming their way, they don't go forward. It's an instinctive reaction. And I just, I like what Earl Weaver said, the old-time Oriole manager. If a pitcher hits a batter, he should just get kicked out or whatever. It shouldn't be deemed whether it's an accident or not. He should have better control. And they should have better control. If your control's not good enough and you're hitting someone, let's compare to other sports, guys. If one player's hitting another player with elbows in the mouth, like Bill Lambert, your guy, Strilla, he's probably claiming it was an accident all the time. He'd be hitting a guy with a forearm, this and that. And how do you prove it looking at the videotape? The only way to deal with it, you better learn to control your elbow, your forearm, and not hit a guy in the face. And something's got to be done with this beanball war before someone seriously gets hurt.
Well, on Lambert, I don't think he would care in the first place because he was that kind of guy.
He would have cared if he would have been given like a 10-game.
And he would have been doing the same thing the next game. So that's what I mean by not caring. Yeah. So that's. In other major league news, Chris Sale was placed on an 15-day IL for the Braves with a fractured rib cage. The Braves are starting to play a little bit better. I don't know how much this is going to seriously affect them going forward, though, because Sale is a good pitcher. and to lose him might be some kind of thing for the Braves. James, you're in Atlanta. How do you feel? How is the perception going with the Braves right now with this loss?
I mean, I'm not. That's going to be tough. I mean, you look at how they started. They started with injuries, to some of their major key players, and they're like middle of the road right now, and that's got to be tough for them. And so I just think that this is probably not the year for this. They had some bad luck. This is probably not the year for them. They're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna fare well towards the end. So I just think that that's pretty tough for them.
Yeah, Chris Sale's a great pitcher, not a good pitcher, but he won the Cy Young Award, last year. And he was a great pitcher coming over from the American League, with the White Sox and Red Sox. You look at the standings, you mentioned Strilla with Atlanta, they're 10 games out. But that's as far as the division goes, and they're behind the Mets and the Phillies, and the chance of the Braves coming back and overtaking both teams to win the division are very small. But they were in the wild card hunt. We're living in a new day and age. I didn't look at the wild card standings, but I would estimate they're probably about 5-6 games out. And they just have to chip away. I mean, their season was rejuvenated when they swept the Mets in Atlanta. I mean, they really needed that, and all of a sudden there's a little life in Atlanta. It would seem like this isn't their year, but if they hang around, it could all come together.
I mean, we haven't even reached the All-Star break yet, so that's another thing. There's plenty of baseball to play. Speaking of that, Rafael Devers was traded a week ago, and last night he blasted 200 homer to help fuel a victory over the Red Sox, his former team, by the way. He said he felt really good about that. It's one of the best home runs he hit. I said, yeah, you're throwing some shade, buddy, but that's cool. That's all right. I think he's tremendously going to help San Francisco, which is funny because Boston said, hey, we need you to play this spot, and he kind of refused to do that. But now when he's with San Francisco, he's saying, I'll play anywhere. The dude's weird. I don't understand.
Yeah, we discussed it on the show yesterday. He signed a 10-year deal with the Red Sox, getting over $31 million a year, and he signed to play third base, but he wasn't a good defensive third baseman. I kind of wonder why the Red Sox felt the need to sign Alex Bregman, for a 3-year deal as a free agent, because they did have Devers there. Or they should have just been upfront with Devers from the beginning, that we're looking to move you to first base at some point, or we want you to play a little first base. It was kind of communication problem. And I think these players, a lot of them have a big ego. I mean, let me ask you guys this. What happens if the Red Sox call Devers bluff? He looks in the dugout at the lineup card, and he sees his name penciled in at first base, and they tell him you have to play first base. What are you going to do, not take the field? If he doesn't take the field, you suspend him. He doesn't get paid, and he can't come back till he plays first base. Teams don't do that. They don't call players bluffs. It's kind of like a gentle tug of war going back and forth. And, James agreed with me on this, but, they're getting paid so much money, these guys. I can understand he's a bit unhappy about it, but communicate with the manager, Alex Cora. Say, look, play me at third base the times Alex isn't playing third base. I want to play third base. That'll make me feel good. At least I'm there part of the time. I could fill in at first base part of the time and DH the other part of the time. And like I said yesterday, Alex Bregman has a 3-year deal. He could opt out after the first or second year. And Devers wasn't going anywhere. He was going to be a career Red Sox if we didn't have this. So at some point, he probably would have been switched back to third base.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has to do with the Alex Bregman signing, to tell you the truth. The egotistical thing that's going on in his head. And that's the reason why he's throwing temper tantrums with Boston. Going into the All-Star break, speaking of players that are doing well, Cal Raleigh became the first player catcher, reached 30 home runs before the All-Star break, and his third straight season with 30. Also the first switch hitter to do it before the All-Star break. He's playing lights out right now. And I think that's the reason why Seattle's playing so well as a team. Speaking of the All-Star game as well, going to that point, who are some of your All-Stars that you want to see in the All-Star game?
I couldn't care less. It's an exhibition. It doesn't mean anything to me. I'm sorry I didn't answer your question. It's a valid question. It's a good question, but
that's just a fan question, Jack. I know you're a fan of the game, but
I'd rather discuss current players who are young and maybe project whether they're going to be a Hall of Famer someday. Stuff like that. But who's in an exhibition?
Well, most of those players that
the All-Star game, I'll be honest about it. It used to be big. I keep the TV on, but I'm not even paying attention to the darn.
I agree. I'm with you. I would check because I don't usually watch the All-Star game either. I used to watch the Home Run Derby, but that's even gotten boring to me. I can't.
Exactly.
Yeah, the All-Star games in a lot of these sports are just like, okay, whatever. But this question goes for you too as well, James. Did you have any favorites going into the All-Star game, or are you just the same way Jack is?
Yeah, I watch baseball, but not that much. And so I definitely the last year I watched the Home Run Derby. That wasn't too bad. I actually liked the Home Run Derby last year. That's funny you guys said that. It was actually pretty decent. But other than that, I mean, just like with all sports, most All-Star games are just not as good as they used. The appeal is gone. It's for whatever reason, people they use it as a vacation. No one has. There's no competitive edge. It seems like to say I want to win. I don't see that anymore. Like Jack said, it's an exhibition. So who wants to watch that?
Right.
These are good questions for a Saturday debate show. For example, what's more exciting and entertaining? I don't want to go into detail about it completely now because I want to save Saturday. The Home Run Derby in the major leagues or the slam dunk contest. I mean, in the NBA. Which is more entertaining? Another question too. We could debate this now. Who does it mean more to be on a winning team of all the All-Star games? Is it that the NFL doesn't have one anymore? Does it mean more to the NBA players? Does it mean anything? Does it mean anything to the major league players? American National League. I kind of feel it means more to the NBA. I think there's a little bit of an East-West thing, in the NBA that exceeds the major leagues, American League, National League. That's just the feeling I get. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, I guess it's a maturity process over the years with me personally watching the All-Star games. I don't watch any of the All-Star games anymore. I don't watch the NBA All-Star game. When it was, when I was younger, that used to be a fashionable thing to do, but now it's not. I could care less. The baseball All-Star game, I could care less. Like I said, it's usually, if I do watch it, it's for the slam dunk contest or for the home run derby. The NFL fell flat in their face with their Pro Bowl. And then you can't forget about hockey, though. Hockey does have an All-Star game too. And that's okay too. I don't really watch that either. But I'm not a hockey guy either. So I don't know. I can't call it. I can't. It's just over the years, I've just lost interest for all that. I just want to see teams just go through. How about just go through the whole season without having All-Star games? Okay. Because
I think it's more
in the end.
It's more so what you just said, Bstrilla. It's the sideshows that are more entertaining because no one really cares. When I say no one, I mean the players themselves. There's no heart in none of these games at all. There's no excitement. I mean, when you see scores in basketball that are like 150, 160, 170, 180, 200, there's no effort on defense. These guys don't want to get hurt. They're getting paid all this money. We talk about regular season with load management, so they definitely don't want to play extra games in the All-Star game. There's no effort there. So I got to say, Jack, it's probably a tie between all of them. No one really wants it bad enough.
You're on mute, Jack.
Estrella, if you have stuff to cover, just
okay. We're going to the next thing anyway. I was just throwing stuff out there.
Yeah, no. I'm thinking too. I don't know why it never popped into my head. You go city by city and think of and combine all the sports. Who is the greatest player / athlete, greatest performer? I don't mean athlete, decathlon, this and that. Per city, in New York, it would be Babe Ruth, I guess you'd have to say, of all the players. Let me just go to Detroit 1 second, because you mentioned hockey. I know the new generation wouldn't relate to him, but was Gordie Howe the greatest player sport for sport in Detroit history? I know a lot of people mentioned Barry Sanders. It was the old-time great baseball player, Hank Greenberg. No, Isaiah Thomas doesn't come in the mix. I'm sorry, James, not for Detroit. He doesn't come close. Yeah, he's not that close to Gordie Howe.
Well, he is one of the ones. He is one of the ones that are if you say the big four, you're saying Gordie Howe, Al Kaline, Barry Sanders, and Isaiah Thomas are the big four that people relate to in a city. But number one, because I can't. The Detroit's not. Because we won hockey games doesn't make this a hockey city. This is a football city, a die-hard football city. And unfortunately, the Lions have not lived up to that reputation. However, we do have superstars from these generations of football that people love. Barry Sanders would probably be number one here, only because it's football.
I got to agree with you, man.
Gordie Howe could be second. Baseball is pretty prevalent around here too. So Al Kaline between Al Kaline and Gordie.
But who had a better career within their sport, Barry Sanders or Gordie Howe? And I think I give a little edge to Gordie Howe actually, because he was on the very short list of the greatest hockey players of all time. And some people still put him a little ahead of Wayne Gretzky, even though Gretzky came later, so the modern generation would go with Gretzky. And, Gretzky got records, so on.
Well, but your question was, who does Detroit feel who is the number one athlete?
No,
regardless of all that.
Who actually was, not so much.
Well,
right with Detroit, who they might feel.
You're pulling the best player out of every sport.
Yeah,
that we have.
Yeah,
you can't compare everybody. Gordie Howe was good back in his day. Barry Sanders, great back in his day. Isaiah Thomas, great back when he was with the Pistons. All of them have a nice, generational talent on all our sports. Al Kaline was playing, during Gordie Howe was playing. And people think Al Kaline is a better player than Gordie Howe. I'm just saying certain people. I'm not saying everybody. It's just if you go by fandom, Barry Sanders is definitely way up there here.
Yeah.
Who has two statues of them? That should answer your question right there.
Oh, no. The Sanders came later. He's more revered, and Strilla's right. It's more of a football town. Football is more popular than hockey. Gordie Howe played into a very old age. I was just thinking. Now let's switch to New Orleans. Is it Drew Brees, the great?
Without a doubt. You don't even have to ask anything else. Drew Brees, you can stop right there. Pete Maravich, a lot of young people don't know who that is. Obviously, when the Jazz were there, probably the greatest basketball player there. But it never had a baseball team. So we're talking football and basketball for a short time. There's nobody else outside of Drew Brees that's the greatest ever player there in that city. We can stop right there. They need to make a statue of him sometime soon in front of the Superdome. But other than that, yeah, I don't know of anybody else. I can make a case. I can make a slight honorable mention of Ricky Jackson. Ricky Jackson with the Dome Patrol being probably one of the greatest linebackers in the history of the game, but outside linebacker, but definitely number 2 on my list for New Orleans Saints. But hands down, Drew Brees is the greatest sport player.
Archie Manning deserves the non-honorable mention, right?
No. I like Archie Manning, and I love what he did for the city. I love him. I mean, he produced Peyton Manning, but he had a terrible team. And I mean, but I guess my thing is, someone like Barry Sanders had a lot of terrible teams, but still was able to shine. You see what I'm saying? Archie Manning didn't really do that. He didn't really do that. He was good. He had terrible teams, but he really didn't he didn't really shine. You look at the numbers, they're not that great. But I like Archie Manning a lot, but I wouldn't put him maybe he wouldn't even be in my top 10. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of players on it. He wouldn't even be in my top 10.
And Jack, I'm surprised that you just picked Babe Ruth out of everything for New York. As many athletes that's come out of New York that have been really good, you picked Babe Ruth to come out of there?
No. I mean, he's the most accomplished, the biggest legacy player. Even today, everyone knows who Babe Ruth is. I mean, he's the most, he's the most famous baseball player, at least of all time. I mean, he's just.
I would say top 2 if I had to pick New York. Babe Ruth and Lawrence Taylor. That'd be my.
Taylor doesn't come close as a legendary player to Babe Ruth.
Oh my! No, I'm just saying top 2. I would say Babe Ruth number 1, and I would say Lawrence Taylor number 2.
You can say that, but for fame, actually, Joe Namath is a little more famous here in New York.
I knew you were going to go there. I knew you were going there.
But we're talking about.
I'm not saying who was a better player. Taylor was obviously better in his position than Namath wasn't his. That's not close. I mean,
you're just talking about the fan perspective.
I'm talking about the most, famous, impactful player. Who you look at, and Babe Ruth is the most legendary player, in the city's history, and that's Babe Ruth easily. I mean, Lou Gehrig is much more, and Joe DiMaggio much more legendary than Lawrence Taylor.
But you would take even not, but numbers aside, numbers aside, you would take Joe Namath over Lawrence Taylor, fame wise.
Fame-wise, New York, absolutely.
I guess. I mean, you know more than me on that.
I would agree with that, with the fame thing. Numbers-wise, no, but fame, yeah.
Right, James. I could stop the average woman on the street who's not a sports fan, and I could say, "Do you know who Lawrence Taylor is?" And the chances are very good she wouldn't have any idea who Lawrence Taylor was. But if I said, "Do you know who Joe Namath was?" she'd say, "Isn't he the football player?" That would be the answer. Okay, that's what I mean by that.
No, we got to say, hey, good morning, CJ.
CJ.
What about, he said, what about Patrick Ewing?
Legendary player. No, it doesn't come close. You're going to compare Patrick Ewing to Joe DiMaggio as far as fame goes. I mean, Derek Jeter is much more, popular, known than, Patrick Ewing. Ewing's great. If you're talking about that, only the Knicks, I think he's the greatest Knicks player of all time, in my opinion, Patrick Ewing. But we're talking about fame.
Jack, wouldn't it be fair to say that maybe top 5 would include a lot more baseball players in New York than anything? Yeah.
Well, I could say greatest athlete to come out of a city, and I could throw Pastrilla for a loop. I could say, no, it's not Barry Sanders. I could say it's Joe Louis. For what Louis meant coming out of Detroit, if I want to kind of expand beyond teams.
Well, I mean, you got to understand the generation that you're talking to. All of us here know all these players really well. But as a younger generation, I don't think the only reason people know about Joe Louis is because he's got a big ass fist in the middle of the city. So, I mean, he's like, why is there a fist like that? It's Joe Louis. That's the statue icon. So, I mean, I like Joe Louis. I think he's an icon too, but I don't think he's going to be as popular. I mean, numbers wise, he was a beast as far as the boxing community is concerned. But when you equate what Detroit is about as far as famous, and like I said, this is a football town. So Barry Sanders is going to be leading no matter what the numbers look like. But I mean, Gordie Howe is respected, well respected. Al Kaline is well respected. Isaiah Thomas is well respected. So I mean, with all that evidence, I mean, I don't know. I just still think Barry Sanders will be the guy, and I like Joe Louis too. Joe Louis.
One thing, Mac, the late Mac taught me was to learn your history. Learn if you like sports, you should definitely know where the greats came from. I mean, that should be for everybody. Anybody who says they're a sport lover or they love sports and they can't tell you who the last player was in the past 15, 20 years, they don't like sports because you're missing out. Because you have this day and age, these young people have YouTube, they have everything at their helm where you can see everything and you can see who these great players were. Now I see some of these young people they do some of these shows when they're watching some of how, like I saw one guy saw Walter Payton for the first time and his mouth was just wide open. So I'm seeing some of the highlights of Walter Payton. That's great. You'd like to see that. You want to see some of these young people say, "Oh man!" So you can't just say some of the guys that they know now are the greatest because there's some great players that have come along way back. Crazy Legs. What's the guy's name? Jack. Crazy, the running back. The Crazy Legs.
Crazy Legs Hirsch, the wide
Hirsch, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Man, your name there.
I don't want to get carried. Listen, I revere the old time players, but sometimes we get too caught up and we don't allow anyone to exceed them. For example, Jim Brown. Like if someone says there's a better running back than Jim Brown, we don't allow that to happen. Maybe we'll allow the name of Barry Sanders, say, well, I think Sanders or Peyton, but we're stuck on Jim Brown. We're stuck on Wayne Gretzky. We're stuck on Sandy Koufax as a pitcher. Like we won't allow anyone to be better than these guys. And that's not fully accurate. I mean, as great as Jim Brown was, he didn't block. He didn't block.
He didn't have to.
He didn't want to block. He refused to block. He said
he didn't have to.
It was over. If I had to do it all over again, I would have blocked. It was wrong of me not to. But the bottom of that, it's nice of him to say, but he didn't block. If I'm going to say that, Saquon.
Barry didn't block either, though.
If Strillo's going to get mad at me, if I was going to say, and I'm not saying this, Saquon Barkley, in my opinion, is better than Barry Sanders. People wouldn't allow that because Barry Sanders is so revered. I'm not saying I feel that.
I know, right.
It's a viable opinion. It's not a ridiculous opinion to get offended by.
It's not. I mean, again, everything is based on if it was just all three of us relating sports over the past 3 or 4 centuries, that'd be one thing. But you continue to have new generations springing up. This is why we always have this Jordan LeBron debate, because we have two different generations that are fighting with each other about who's the better basketball player. And I just do it like this. In my generation, Jordan was the best player. In this generation, LeBron is the best player. Even
Jordan said that.
Yeah.
Even Jordan said that. He even said that. He said he looked up to Julius Erving. He thought Julius Erving was the best at the time. And so he said, I can't really compare it. But these younger people, these younger cats, including LeBron, they want to say that they're the greatest and stuff like that. I'm of that era where you come from. I think Jordan is the best that I've seen. I've watched. I didn't watch games, Jack, back in the day. I couldn't. We wasn't here, so I watch a lot of the stuff, on highlights and stuff like that. I watch their games, but ultimately the impact of the game, like we had this debate the weekend before, that Jordan is the greatest NBA player to ever exist. Just off what he's done.
On that note, gentlemen, this has been a very good show. Good debates going on here. I know you want to save that for Saturday, Jack, but hey, we got to stretch it out. We only got our show, so we got to stretch it out some way. But anyway, thank you for everybody being on, commenting. Sonia, I hope you have a good church today. And Linda, love you. Have a good one, everybody.